The prison transport ship shook as it dropped through thick gray clouds toward the frozen planet below. Inside the metal cargo hold, 5 prisoners sat chained to their seats. The air grew colder with each passing minute. Frost began to form on the walls around them. Hyunwoo pressed his face against the small round window. All he could see was white. Endless white snow and ice stretched in every direction. No trees, no buildings, no signs of life anywhere. Just ice and more ice under. A pale gray sky. The human did not look scared. His dark eyes moved back and forth as he studied the landscape. He was thinking, planning, already working out how to survive in this frozen hell. Next to him sat Kira. She was a Velaran from a warm desert planet. Her skin was covered in green scales that normally shined bright in sunlight. Now those scales looked dull and gray. She shivered as the cold air made her whole body shake. Across from them was Brahm. The Thorgan warrior was huge. He had 4 thick arms and stood twice as tall as most beings. His people lived deep underground in warm caves near volcanic lava flows. Brahm had never felt cold like this before. His 4 hands were already turning blue. Near the back wall sat Zeph. The insect-like alien had 6 thin legs and 2 large compound eyes. His homeworld was a tropical paradise where his hive mind species shared thoughts through warm chemical signals. The cold was breaking his connection to the hive network. He felt alone and confused for the first time in his life. At the far end was Nara. She belonged to the Etherian race. Her skin was clear like glass and normally glowed with soft light. The cold was making that glow fade away. Soon she would be completely dark. The ship computer spoke in a flat, mechanical voice. Approaching Kepler 438c. Surface temperature is -47 degrees. Atmosphere is breathable for most species. Warning. No native life forms detected on planet surface. No rescue mission planned. Hyunwoo listened carefully to every word. -47 degrees. That was very cold, but not impossible. His grandfather had taught him about winters in old Korea that got almost that cold. People had survived much worse. "We are all going to die here," Kira whispered. Her voice shook with fear. "They sent us here to freeze to death slowly." The other prisoners nodded sadly. They had all heard stories about this place. The Galactic Council used it as their worst punishment. Political prisoners who spoke against the government got sent here. Scientists who refused to make weapons got sent here. Anyone who caused trouble for the Council got sent here to die. But Hyunwoo shook his head. "No," he said quietly but firmly. "We are not going to die. We are going to live." The others stared at him like he was crazy. How could anyone live on this frozen wasteland? The ship sensors showed no plants, no animals, no shelter, just ice and snow and bitter cold wind. The human looked at each of his fellow prisoners. "I know this seems impossible, but my people have lived through ice ages. We survived when our whole planet was covered in ice and snow. We learned to make fire from nothing. We learned to find food where others saw only death. We learned to build homes that stay warm even when everything outside is frozen solid." "Your people did that?" Nara asked. Her fading glow flickered with interest. "Yes," Hyunwoo said. "Not just survived. We grew stronger. Winter taught us things that no other season could teach. It taught us to work together or die alone. It taught us to use everything around us and waste nothing. It taught us that the coldest, hardest places can become home if you know how to live with them instead of fighting them." The ship began to shake more as landing rockets fired. Through the window, Hyunwoo could see the remains of old shelters scattered across the ice. Previous prisoners had tried to build homes here. But the structures were broken and empty, covered with snow and ice. Those people had failed because they tried to fight the cold instead of working with it. "Stay close to me," Hyunwoo told the others as the ship prepared to land. "The first rule of surviving winter is simple. We stick together or we all die, alone. The cold kills individuals, but groups can share warmth, share work, share hope." The ship hit the ground hard. Ice and snow sprayed up past the windows. The metal hull groaned and creaked as it settled. Already the temperature inside was dropping fast. Red warning lights flashed as the ship computer began its final announcement. Prisoner transport complete. All subjects will be released in 30 seconds. Ship will depart immediately. This is your final destination. Hyunwoo stood up as his chains unlocked automatically. The others remained seated, still in shock. Still afraid. Get up, the human said gently but urgently. We need to move quickly. The ship will leave and we need to find shelter before the temperature drops more. One by one, the other prisoners stood. Their chains fell away. The cargo door began to open with a loud hiss of escaping air. Arctic wind howled into the ship. It was so cold it hurt to breathe. Kira cried out as the frozen air hit her desert-adapted lungs. Brahm wrapped all four arms around himself and groaned. Zeph's compound eyes immediately began to ice over. Nara's glow went out completely, but Hyunwoo stepped forward into the wind. He breathed deeply of the sharp cold air. It stung his nose and throat, but he smiled anyway. This was familiar. This was something he understood. Come on, he called back to the others. Follow me. Stay close together. Share body heat. The four aliens stumbled after him into the frozen landscape. Behind them, the transport ship fired its engines and lifted off, leaving them alone on the ice world. Hyunwoo looked around at the broken shelters nearby. Poor construction. No understanding of how cold worked. No knowledge of insulation or heat retention. The previous prisoners had built these structures like they were still on warm worlds. They had failed because they never learned the most important lesson about surviving winter. You do not fight the cold. You make friends with it. You learn its rules. You use its power to help you instead of hurt you. This way, Hyunwoo said, leading them toward the largest ruined shelter. We can use the materials from these old buildings to make something better, something that will keep us alive. As they walked through the snow, leaving footprints in the white powder, the human began to teach them their first lesson about surviving in winter. Feel how the snow crunches under your feet, he said. That means it is dry snow. Dry snow is good insulation. We can use it to help build walls that hold in heat. And see how the wind blows from the north? We will build our shelter facing south to avoid the worst of it. The others listened carefully. For the first time since the ship had landed, they began to feel something other than despair. They began to feel hope. Maybe this strange human really did know how to live in this impossible place. Maybe they really could survive. As the pale sun began to set on their first day of exile, Hyunwoo was already making plans. Shelter first, then fire, then food, then everything else they would need to not just survive but thrive in their new, frozen home. The Galactic Council had sent them here to die. Instead, they had given them the chance to build something new. Something better. The human smiled as he began sorting through salvageable materials from the ruined shelters. Winter was coming, but he was ready for it. He had been ready his whole life. The temperature dropped 10 more degrees as the pale sun disappeared behind gray clouds. Inside the ruins of an old shelter, the four alien prisoners huddled together for warmth. Their breath came out in white puffs that froze in the air before falling to the ground as ice crystals. Brahm wrapped all four of his massive arms around his body. His thick muscles shook uncontrollably from the cold. My homeworld has warm caves, he said through chattering teeth. Deep underground near volcanic. Vents, always warm, always safe. This cold is killing me slowly. Zeph tried to move closer to the others, but his 6 insect legs were becoming stiff and clumsy. Cannot think clearly, he clicked weakly. Hive mind connection broken by extreme cold. Feel so alone. So confused. Never been alone before. Kira pressed against Nara, hoping the Etherian's body heat would help. But Nara's skin was cold as ice now. Her natural glow had completely died out. We are all going to freeze to death tonight, Kira whispered in despair. But across the ruined shelter, Hyunwoo moved with purpose and energy. While the others sat still and waited to die, the human searched through piles of broken materials. He pulled apart pieces of metal sheeting from destroyed walls. He gathered synthetic fabric from the frozen bodies of previous prisoners. He even collected organic matter that had been preserved in the ice for months or years. "What are you doing?" Nara asked weakly. Her voice was barely a whisper now. "Building us a proper shelter," Hyunwoo answered without stopping his work. "And more important than that, I am making fire." Fire? Kira's scaled skin had turned from green to blue. "There is nothing that burns on this frozen world. No wood, no plants, no fuel." Hyunwoo smiled as he cracked open a piece of electronic equipment from one of the old shelters. Inside were chemical components and synthetic materials. There is always something that will burn if you know where to look. Synthetic fabrics burn, chemical compounds burn. Even body heat can be trapped and made stronger. The human worked through the long cold night while the others watched. He had learned these skills from his grandfather back on Earth. Old Korean survival methods passed down through generations of harsh winters. His grandfather had taught him about Ondal heating systems that used underground fires to warm whole houses. Hyunwoo could not build the same system here, but he could adapt the idea. He used flat pieces of metal to create channels that would carry heat throughout their shelter. He broke apart electronic components to get chemicals that would burn hot and long. He positioned everything carefully so the heat would move in the right directions. "My grandfather lived through the worst winter in Korean history," Hyunwoo explained as he worked. "The temperature dropped to -30 degrees for 2 months. No electricity, no modern heating. But he kept his whole family alive using methods that were thousands of years old." "How?" Brahm asked. The big warrior was fascinated despite his suffering. "By understanding that cold is not your enemy," Hyunwoo said. "Cold is a force of nature. You cannot fight it directly and win, but you can work with it. You can use its own power against itself." The human showed them how to arrange their bodies to share the most heat, how to breathe in ways that warmed the air before it reached their lungs, how to move just enough to keep blood flowing without wasting energy. As the night went on, Hyunwoo's improvised heating system began to work. The chemical fire he had started with electronic components burned steady and hot. The metal channels carried that heat throughout their space. Slowly, the temperature inside their shelter began to rise. By the time the sun appeared again, the inside of their shelter was warm enough that the others had stopped shivering. They stared at Hyunwoo with amazement and new respect. "How did you know to do this?" Brahm asked. His forearms were finally relaxed for the first time since landing. "My species evolved during ice ages," Hyunwoo explained simply. "For thousands of years, my ancestors survived winters that killed everything else. We learned to see ice and snow not as death but as tools, not as enemies but as resources." Kira felt warmth returning to her scaled skin. The green color was coming back slowly. "Your people are survivors." "All species are survivors," Hyunwoo corrected her. "But humans learn to survive everywhere. Hot deserts, frozen tundra, high mountains, deep oceans, toxic swamps. Every environment on our planet tried to kill us. We learned from all of them." Zeph's compound eyes were clear now that the extreme cold was gone. His hive-mind connection was still broken, but he was thinking more clearly. "This heating system you built, it uses very little fuel but produces much warmth. Very efficient." "Efficiency is survival," Hyunwoo nodded. "Waste nothing, use everything, make every resource work for multiple purposes." As the day continued, the human began teaching them other survival skills. How to collect and purify water from ice and snow. How to recognize which materials made the best insulation. How to read wind patterns to predict weather changes. "The council sent us here to die slowly," Nara said. Her glow was returning as her body warmed up. "But you are teaching us to live." "The council made a mistake," Hyunwoo replied. "They thought this world was impossible to survive on. But impossible is just a word people use when they give up too easily." That afternoon, another transport ship appeared in the gray sky. It descended through the swirling snow and landed near their shelter. The cargo doors opened and 6 more prisoners stumbled out into the frozen wasteland. Hyunwoo stood up immediately. "Come on," he told his companions. "We have new people to save." The 4 aliens looked at each other. Yesterday they had been ready to die. Today they were ready to help others live. As they walked through the snow toward the new arrivals, Kira asked, "Will we be able to keep everyone alive?" Hyunwoo looked out at the endless white landscape. Already he was making plans, not just for survival, but for building something bigger, something permanent. "We will do more than keep them alive," he said confidently. "We will teach them to thrive." The human had survived his first night on the ice world. Now it was time to start building a community that would not just endure the cold, but master it completely. Winter was no longer their enemy. It was becoming their greatest teacher. 3 weeks had passed since their arrival on the ice world. What started as 5 desperate prisoners fighting for survival had grown into a group of 23 beings from 12 different species. Each new transport brought more exiles, and each exile learned the same hard truth: follow Hyunwoo or die. The human stood at the edge of a frozen lake, explaining their next survival challenge to the gathered group. "Food," he said simply. "We have learned to stay warm and find shelter. Now we must learn to feed ourselves." The newer arrivals looked skeptical. Minho, a young human who had been exiled for refusing military service, shook his head. "There is nothing alive on this world. The council sensors proved that." "The council sensors looked for intelligent life," Hyunwoo corrected him. "They were not looking for simple organisms that could survive in extreme cold." Hyunwoo knelt down and began scraping away snow from the lake surface. Underneath was thick, clear ice. "Ice fishing," he announced, "one of the oldest human survival skills." Using heated metal tools salvaged from crashed shelters, the human began cutting a hole through the ice. The work was slow and difficult, but eventually he broke through to the dark water below. "My grandfather taught me this when I was very young," Hyunwoo explained as he worked. "He said fish in frozen lakes go deep where the water is warmer. They move slowly to save energy. That makes them easier to catch." Kira watched closely. Over the past weeks, her Velaran claws had adapted to the cold better than expected. "What if there are no fish?" "Then we learn what is down there," Hyunwoo replied. "But life finds a way to exist everywhere, even here." He lowered an improvised hook into the dark water. The hook was made from bent metal and tied to strong synthetic rope. For bait, he used small pieces of organic matter from the crashed shelters. At first, nothing happened. The group waited in the cold wind, watching the small hole in the ice. Some began to walk away, thinking this was a waste of time. Then the rope moved. Hyunwoo pulled carefully, feeling the weight on the other end. Something was fighting, trying to swim away. He pulled harder, bringing whatever it was up toward the surface. A strange fish-like creature emerged from the hole. It was pale white with large eyes, adapted for the dark underwater environment. Not intelligent life, but definitely life. "Protein," Hyunwoo said with satisfaction. "Enough to feed 3 people for 1 day." The group stared in amazement. They had been on this world for weeks without knowing there was food available right under their feet. "You see," Hyunwoo continued, "the council assumed this world was dead because they only looked at the surface. But under the ice, life continues. Slower, quieter, but still there. Soon, everyone wanted to learn ice fishing." Kira discovered that her sharp claws were perfect for grabbing the slippery creatures. Brahm's 4 strong arms could break through ice much faster than anyone else. Even Zeph learned to use his compound eyes to spot movement in the dark water. But hunting fish was just the beginning. Hyunwoo taught them to hunt the cold itself. "Cold preserves things," he explained as they explored the ruins of older settlements. Bodies of previous prisoners, their equipment, their supplies, everything frozen solid and perfectly preserved. It was grim work, but necessary for survival. They found clothing, tools, and even food that had been frozen for months or years. Nothing was wasted. Everything was cleaned and repurposed. "Is this what your people did during the Ice Age?" asked So Young, a former teacher who had been exiled for refusing to teach council propaganda. "Yes," Hyunwoo nodded. "We learned that winter gives as much as it takes. It freezes and kills, but it also preserves and protects. Meat that would rot in 1 day on a warm world stays fresh for months in this cold." As the days passed, their hunting skills improved. They found underground caves where small creatures hibernated. They discovered that some of the synthetic materials in crashed ships contained nutrients that could be processed into food supplements. Most importantly, they learned to work as a team. Each species brought different abilities to their hunting efforts. Nara's Etherian light-sensing abilities could detect heat sources deep underground. Brahm's strength could break through barriers that blocked others. Zeph's analytical mind could calculate the most efficient hunting patterns. Kira's diplomatic skills helped coordinate group efforts. "We are becoming something new," Hyunwoo observed as they prepared their evening meal around a communal fire. "Not just humans and Valorans and Thorgans and others. We are becoming survivors." Minho looked up from the fish he was cleaning. "The council thought they were eliminating troublemakers by sending us here. Instead, they are creating something they never expected." Brahm rumbled with satisfaction. "A community that does not need them. A community they cannot control," added Kira. That night, another transport ship landed in the distance. More exiles. More people who needed to learn how to live in the impossible place. But now it was not just Hyunwoo teaching survival skills. The original 5 had become teachers themselves, passing on what they had learned to each new group. "How many do you think they will send?" So Young asked. Hyunwoo looked up at the stars visible through the clear, cold atmosphere. "As many as it takes for them to realize they are not getting rid of us. They are making us stronger." As the group settled in for sleep around their warm shelter, the human thought about his grandfather's stories of surviving the great winter. His grandfather had always said that the hardest seasons taught the most important lessons. This ice world was teaching them all something the council had never intended, that beings from different species could work together. That survival was not just about staying alive, but about building something worth living for. And most importantly, that no environment was truly impossible if you were willing to learn from it, instead of fighting against it. The cold wind howled outside their shelter, but inside it was warm and full of hope. They were no longer just surviving the ice world. They were beginning to master it. 4 months had passed since Hyunwoo first stepped onto the frozen world. What had started as a desperate fight for survival had grown into something remarkable. Their settlement now housed over 150 beings from dozens of different species. The original shelter had expanded into a network of connected buildings. Each structure was designed using Hyunwoo's heating principles, but adapted for different species' needs. The Valoran section had higher humidity for their scaled skin. The Thorgan area had lower ceilings that trapped heat better for their massive bodies. The Etherian spaces had special windows that helped maintain their natural glow. Jin Ai arrived on the 43rd transport ship. She was a former agricultural scientist who had been exiled for refusing to develop biological weapons for the council. The moment she saw their growing settlement, she knew she had found her new purpose. "This is impossible," she breathed as Hyunwoo showed her around the complex. "How are plants growing in this frozen wasteland?" "Underground hydroponic gardens," Hyunwoo explained, leading her down into the warm tunnels they had carved beneath the main buildings. "We use geothermal energy from deep underground. Nara helped us locate the heat sources. The underground growing chambers were filled with green plants. Rows of vegetables and protein-rich crops grew under artificial lights, powered by their improvised energy systems. The air was warm and humid, a stark contrast to the frozen world above. "These are earth plants," Jin'e said in amazement, recognizing tomatoes and soybeans among the crops. "Seeds from crashed supply ships," Hyunwoo nodded. "Previous prisoners tried to grow them on the surface and failed. We learned to work with the environment instead of against it." Jinny knelt down to examine the growing systems more closely. The soil mixture, the nutrient balance, even the water pH levels, everything is perfectly calibrated. "Who designed this?" "Everyone," Hyunwoo replied. Nara understood the energy requirements. Kira organized the work crews. Brahm provided the physical labor. Zeph calculated the optimal growing conditions. Each person contributed what they knew best. Within days, Jinny had become their lead agricultural coordinator. Her scientific training helped them improve crop yields and expand their growing capacity. Soon they were producing enough food not just to survive, but to build up reserves for the future. The settlement continued to grow with each new transport. Taemin arrived as a former military strategist who had opposed the Council's expansion policies. He immediately saw the potential in what they were building. "You have created something the Council never intended," he told Hyunwoo as they walked through the bustling community. "A fully functional society." "We have created what we needed to survive," Hyunwoo corrected. "Everything else just followed naturally." Taemin shook his head. "This is more than survival. You have schools where children learn from multiple species. You have workshops where beings share different technologies. You have a council where every species gets equal representation. This is a civilization." The military strategist was right. What had started as basic survival had evolved into something much larger. They had established work crews for different tasks: construction, food production, technology salvage, and newcomer integration. They had created a fair system for distributing resources and making group decisions. Most importantly, they had learned to value what each species brought to their community: Thorgan strength, Velaran diplomacy, Etherian energy sensitivity, human adaptability, and dozens of other unique abilities. But it was Do-hyun who made the discovery that changed everything. The young man had arrived on one of the recent transports. He was barely past human adulthood, exiled for protesting against forced military conscription. While exploring the deep ice caves they used for storage, he found something extraordinary. "Hyunwoo," Do-hyun called excitedly, running through the settlement with his breath forming clouds in the cold air. "You need to see what I found in the deep caves." Following the excited teenager through their network of tunnels, Hyunwoo descended deeper underground than anyone had gone before. The walls here were different, not natural ice formations, but clearly artificial constructions. Ancient ruins, Hyunwoo realized, studying the alien architecture. This world was not always frozen. The ruins stretched for kilometers underground. Massive halls filled with strange technology. Power conduits that still hummed with energy after who knew how many years. Control systems that seemed to be waiting for someone to activate them. "The technology is still functional," Kira observed, her diplomatic training helping her recognize the significance of what they had found. "Dormant, but functional." Nara placed her glowing hand on one of the control surfaces. Immediately, lights began flickering throughout the ancient complex. Systems that had slept for centuries began to wake up with low humming sounds. "Whatever happened to this world?" Taemin said, studying the layout with his strategic mind. "It happened quickly. The original inhabitants did not have time to shut down their systems or evacuate." Hyunwoo examined the power generation systems. They were beyond anything in the current galactic database. Clean, efficient, and capable of producing enormous amounts of energy. "Do you understand what this means?" he asked the assembled group. Brahm gestured with all four arms at the vast underground city they had discovered. "We are no longer just surviving on the surface. We are inheriting an entire civilization. A civilization with technology that makes council systems look primitive," added Do-hyun. As they explored deeper into the ruins, they found manufacturing facilities, transportation systems, and most importantly, environmental control technology. The original inhabitants had been masters of planetary engineering. They terraformed this world, Hyunwoo realized, studying the massive atmospheric processors. Made it habitable. Then something went wrong and it all froze. "But the systems are still here," Janae said with growing excitement. "If we could reactivate them, we could control the climate of this entire world," Taemin finished. That night, the Settlement Council met in emergency session. Representatives from every species discussed what they had discovered and what it meant for their future. "The Council thought they were throwing us away on a dead world," Hyunwoo addressed the group. "Instead, they have given us the keys to technology that surpasses anything in the galaxy." "What do we do with this knowledge?" asked So-young. Hyunwoo looked around at the faces gathered in their meeting hall. Beings from dozens of worlds, all united by their shared experience of exile and survival. "We learn to use it," he said simply. We master it, and we show the galaxy what happens when you underestimate the power of beings working together. As ancient alien systems continued to come online around them, the settlement on the ice world began to transform from a community of survivors into something the galaxy had never seen before. They were no longer just living on this world. They were becoming its new masters. 1 full year had passed since the first exiled transport landed on the ice world. The planet that the Galactic Council had chosen as a death sentence had been completely transformed. What was once an endless frozen wasteland was now the site of the most advanced civilization in known space. The settlement had grown into a gleaming city that stretched both above and below the surface. Modern buildings integrated seamlessly with the recovered alien architecture. Geothermal power systems fed advanced manufacturing facilities. Hydroponic farms produced surplus food that was processed and stored in vast underground complexes. Most importantly, they had established communication with the galactic network. Sun He, a former communications officer who had been exiled for refusing to jam civilian distress calls during a border conflict, worked at the newly constructed transmitter array. The technology combined human engineering with the alien systems they had discovered in the ruins. Hyun-woo, she called from her control station. We are receiving response signals from 32 different star systems. Word about what we have accomplished here is spreading throughout the galaxy. The human leader stood in the central command chamber of the ancient alien complex. The massive room was now fully operational, with screens displaying data from across their growing civilization. Temperature control systems maintained comfortable conditions throughout all their facilities. Resource extraction operations pulled minerals from deep beneath the ice. Manufacturing plants produced everything from basic tools to advanced electronics. Most impressive of all, they had successfully reverse-engineered the alien terraforming technology that had originally made this world habitable before the unknown catastrophe that froze it. Population report, Hyun-woo requested from his council of advisors. Taemin stepped forward. His role had evolved from survival strategist to civilization coordinator. Current population, 2,417 individuals, representing 53 different species. All major systems are operating at full capacity. Food production exceeds consumption by 45%. Manufacturing capabilities now include advanced electronics, defensive systems, and atmospheric processing equipment. Communication status? Hyun-woo asked. Sun He displayed intercepted council transmissions on the main screen. Initial confusion from council leadership, then growing concern. Their latest classified communications indicate they are beginning to understand that their exile program has not been eliminating political dissidents. Instead, it has been creating a rival power base with technology they cannot match. Technological development report? Hyun-woo asked. Do Hyun, now head of their advanced research division, activated a holographic display showing their latest achievements. The alien technology surpasses current galactic civilization by several centuries. Their power generation systems are 90% more efficient than Council standard technology. Their environmental control systems can regulate the climate of entire planets. Their manufacturing capabilities can produce materials that do not exist anywhere else in known space. Defense capabilities? Hyun-woo asked. Fully operational, Taemin replied with satisfaction. The ancient planetary defense grid has been restored to full functionality. Any ship approaching this system without our permission will face technology that can disable their vessels without causing permanent damage. We have also begun construction of our own spacecraft using hybrid human-alien engineering. Hyun-woo nodded as he processed this information. A year ago, they had been desperate, prisoners fighting to survive in an Arctic wasteland. Now they commanded a civilization with technology that rivaled the galactic government that had condemned them to death. Sir, Sun He called from her station. Priority transmission incoming from the Galactic Council. They are requesting immediate diplomatic negotiations. The assembled leaders exchanged meaningful looks. The same council that had sentenced them to die on a frozen world was now asking to talk as equals. Open the channel, Hyun-woo ordered. The main screen flickered to life, showing the council chamber on the capital world. 5 council members representing the major galactic powers sat at their curved desk. Behind them stood Admiral Vex, the military commander responsible for the exile program. Citizens of Kepler 438c, the lead council member began formally. The Galactic Council acknowledges your survival and development on the world designated as Exile Site 7. Hyunwoo smiled slightly at their careful language. Council members, he replied calmly, welcome to New Haven. I trust your day has been productive. We are prepared to discuss the termination of exile sentences for all individuals currently residing on your world. The council member continued. In exchange, we require your cooperation in sharing the advanced technologies you have discovered. Sharing? Hyunwoo repeated. You sentenced us to death on a world you believed was uninhabitable. When we not only survived but prospered, you now want to profit from our achievements? The council members shifted uncomfortably. The technologies in question belong to a dead civilization. They should be studied by qualified galactic scientists for the benefit of all species. The technologies, Hyunwoo corrected them, belong to the people who found them, restored them, and learned to use them. That would be us. Admiral Vex stepped forward. The Council has authority over all technological discoveries in this galaxy. You will surrender control of those systems immediately. Hyunwoo's expression did not change, but everyone in the command center could feel the temperature in the room drop slightly. Admiral, Hyunwoo said quietly, I would like you to check your tactical displays very carefully. You will notice that every weapon system on every ship in your fleet has just been disabled. You will notice that your life support systems are functioning only because we are allowing them to function. You will notice that your ships cannot leave this system right now, even if you wanted to. The Admiral's face went pale as his officers confirmed what Hyunwoo was saying. Somehow, the exile colony had technology that could completely control Council ships without firing a single shot. This is impossible, one of the Council members whispered. This is what you never understood about humans, Hyunwoo replied, his voice still calm but carrying an edge of steel. Every other species you encountered accepted environmental limitations. Desert species died in the cold. Ocean species died on land. Mountain species died at sea level. But humans adapt to everything. We do not just survive in hostile environments, we master them. We make them better than they were before. Behind him, the screen showed images of New Haven. Gleaming cities beneath protective domes. Vast agricultural complexes producing food for thousands. Manufacturing facilities creating technology that surpassed anything in Council space. Schools, where human children learned alongside young beings from dozens of species. You tried to kill us with exile, Hyunwoo continued. Instead, you gave us the opportunity to build something better than anything you have. Every exile you sent here became a citizen of New Haven. Every specialist you threw away became a leader in our society. Every challenge you thought would kill us became a solution we mastered. The council chamber was completely silent. What do you want? The lead council member finally asked. Hyunwoo had been waiting for this question for months. Full diplomatic recognition of New Haven as an independent system. Immediate release of all remaining political prisoners in council custody. Reparations for the families of exiles who died in the early transports before they could reach us. And a formal apology for attempting genocide through exile. And if the council refuses? Admiral Vex asked. Hyunwoo smiled. And for the first time since the conversation began, it was not entirely friendly. Then you will discover what happens when you give humans who have mastered the impossible a reason to be creative about solving problems. The transmission ended, leaving the council chamber in stunned silence. 3 days later, the Galactic Council voted unanimously to accept all of New Haven's terms. As Hyunwoo watched the council fleet depart from orbit, Jinny joined him on the observation deck of their capital city. Do you think they will honor the agreement? She asked. For now, Hyunwoo replied. But my grandfather had a saying, trust, but always be ready. We will keep building, keep learning, keep growing stronger. Outside the windows, Aurora Borealis danced across the sky above New Haven. The frozen world had become a beacon of hope for anyone the galaxy tried to throw away. The exile program was quietly shut down the following month. The Council had learned that sending their problems to New Haven only made those problems stronger, smarter, and better equipped to challenge their authority. But for the citizens of New Haven, this was just the beginning of their story. 5 years had passed since Admiral Vex led the Council fleet to New Haven, expecting to find a frozen graveyard. Instead, he had encountered the most advanced civilization in the galaxy. Now he was returning, but this time as an official diplomatic envoy rather than a military commander. The Council had spent those 5 years trying to understand how their exile program had backfired so completely. Their best scientists still could not explain how prisoners sent to die on a dead world had discovered and mastered technology that surpassed their own by centuries. As his diplomatic vessel approached the Kepler 438 system, Admiral Vex stared at his sensor readings in continuing amazement. Where once there had been a single frozen planet, there was now a thriving multi-world civilization. New Haven had grown beyond the original ice world. 3 other planets in the system now supported colonies. Massive space stations orbited each world, connected by transport ships that used propulsion technology the Council could not duplicate. Mining operations extracted resources from asteroid belts using methods that seemed almost like magic. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "we are being scanned by the New Haven defense grid. They are requesting our diplomatic credentials." "Transmit our authorization codes," Admiral Vex ordered, "and request permission to speak with Hyunwoo." The main screen flickered to life, but instead of showing the human leader, it displayed a young woman Admiral Vex did not recognize. She wore robes that combined human design with alien technology and spoke with quiet authority. "Admiral Vex," she said formally, "I am Coordinator Hye Jin. I will be handling your diplomatic mission today." "I was expecting to speak with Hyunwoo," the Admiral said. "Director Hyunwoo is currently overseeing the integration of the Zephyrian refugees from the Outer Rim conflicts." Hye Jin replied smoothly. "However, I am fully authorized to discuss Council business." Admiral Vex realized that New Haven had grown so large and complex that Hyunwoo was no longer personally handling every diplomatic contact. The human had built a government that could function without his direct involvement in every decision. "The Council has prepared a formal proposal for technology sharing agreements," Admiral Vex began. "In exchange for access to your advanced systems, we are prepared to offer significant trade concessions and political recognition." Hye Jin reviewed the proposal on her personal display. "Admiral, with respect, the Council continues to misunderstand our position. We do not need your trade concessions. Our manufacturing capabilities exceed your production capacity by several orders of magnitude. We do not need your political recognition. We already have diplomatic relations with 47 independent systems." "Then what do you want?" Admiral Vex asked, echoing the same question he had posed 5 years earlier. "What we have always wanted," Hye Jin replied. "To be left alone, to build the society we choose to build. And the refugees you keep accepting from Council space? People seeking freedom will always be welcome in New Haven," Hye Jin said firmly. "We do not actively recruit from your territories. But when beings come to us seeking sanctuary from oppression, we do not turn them away." Admiral Vex knew this was a major problem for the Council. New Haven had become a symbol of hope for dissidents throughout the galaxy. Their success story was inspiring rebellions and independence movements on dozens of worlds. "The Council is prepared to discuss modifications to our governance policies," he offered. "Perhaps some of the democratic reforms you have implemented here could be adapted for broader galactic use." For the first time in their conversation, Hye Jin smiled. "Admiral, 5 years ago your Council tried to commit genocide by abandoning thousands of people on a world they believed was uninhabitable. Now you want to learn from the society those same people built. Do you not see the irony in this?" "The exile program was a mistake," Admiral Vex admitted. "The Council acknowledges this." "The exile program was attempted murder," Hye Jin corrected him. "And the only reason it failed was because you underestimated human adaptability and the power of diverse beings working together toward common goals." The screen split to show additional images. New Haven's universities where students from hundreds of species learned together. Medical centers where alien healing techniques were combined with human medicine to save lives that would have been lost in council space, and research facilities where scientists worked freely without military oversight. This is what you could never create under your system, Heejin continued. True cooperation between species. Not dominance by the strongest, but partnership among equals. Admiral Vex studied the images carefully. How do you maintain order with so many different species and cultures? The same way we survived that first winter, Heejin replied. By understanding that diversity is strength, not weakness. By making sure everyone contributes what they do best. By sharing resources fairly and making decisions together. And if the council were to offer a formal alliance, Admiral Vex asked, between equals? Heejin asked pointedly. The admiral hesitated. The council had never offered true alliance to anyone. They offered protection, trade agreements, and membership in their federation, but never partnership between equals. I would need to discuss that with my superiors, he finally admitted. Of course you would, Heejin said with understanding. The council system was not designed for equal partnerships. It was designed for control. At that moment, the screen expanded to show a familiar figure entering the room. Hyunwoo looked older than when Admiral Vex had last seen him, with gray streaks in his black hair and lines around his eyes from years of responsibility. But he moved with the same quiet confidence that had impressed the Admiral 5 years earlier. Admiral Vex, Hyunwoo said warmly. Welcome back to New Haven. I hope Coordinator Heejin has been helpful. Director Hyunwoo, Admiral Vex replied formally. The Council has asked me to inquire about the refugees from the Outer Rim. Hyunwoo nodded seriously. 3,000 beings whose worlds were destroyed in the recent conflicts, mostly civilians, families with children. They arrived in ships that were barely holding together, with nothing but the clothes they were wearing. The Council is prepared to relocate them to designated refugee camps, Admiral Vex offered. The Council created those refugees when they decided to expand into the Outer Rim, Hyunwoo replied. Now they are New Haven citizens. They have homes, jobs, and hope for the future. The Outer Rim expansion was necessary for galactic security, Admiral Vex said, repeating the official Council position. The Outer Rim expansion was conquest disguised as peacekeeping, Hyunwoo corrected calmly. And the beings fleeing that conquest are welcome here. Admiral Vex realized that this conversation was not going as the Council had hoped. New Haven was not interested in compromise or negotiation. They had built something better than what the Council offered, and they knew it. What would it take for New Haven to consider closer cooperation with the Council? He asked directly. Hyunwoo and Heejin exchanged a look. Then the human leader stepped forward. Full democratization of the Council system, Hyunwoo said simply. Equal representation for all member species, not just the founding races. End to military expansion policies. Immediate ceasefire in all current conflicts. Release of all political prisoners, and transformation from a galactic empire into a true federation of independent worlds. Admiral Vex stared at him in shock. You are asking us to completely restructure galactic civilization. We are offering to help you build something better, Hyunwoo replied. The same way we built something better here. The Council will never accept those terms, Admiral Vex said. Then the Council will continue to watch their citizens flee to places like New Haven, Heejin said simply. We are not trying to destroy your system, Admiral. We are simply providing an alternative for those who want something different. And if that alternative becomes too attractive? Admiral Vex asked. If too many worlds start demanding independence? Hyunwoo smiled. Then, you will have learned the same lesson we learned on this ice world. You can either adapt to changing circumstances, or you can be destroyed by them. The transmission ended, leaving Admiral Vex alone with his thoughts as his ship prepared to leave the New Haven system. 3 months later, the first Council member, Worlds declared independence and requested membership in the New Haven Federation. Within 2 years, the Galactic Council had dissolved peacefully, replaced by a democratic federation based on the New Haven model. Hyunwoo stood in his private study, Looking out at the aurora dancing over the city he had helped build from nothing, on his desk was a message from Earth, where his nephew was studying the New Haven development model to help rebuild areas damaged by climate change. His grandfather had been right about winter, he thought. It did not kill the strong. It revealed who was strong all along, and sometimes it taught the strong how to help others become strong too. Outside his window, children from a dozen different species played in the snow, their laughter echoing across the settlement that had grown into the heart of a new kind of civilization. The human smiled, remembering that first desperate night when his fellow exiles had thought they were going to die. Instead, they had learned the most important lesson about survival. It was not enough to just live through the winter, you had to build